So first of all, what do you make of this rhetoric now coming from President Trump around censorship and free speech and this issue that has been dogging these technology companies, and yet some of the things the president is citing come with no evidence?
I think that that's a fair characterization of where we are, the posture of this. There is some politicalization of what it does and doesn't go into the algorithms and the content judgment calls when certain tweets are requested be removed. At the same point in time, I do think that there are some constitutional questions around what right does a company have to remove content based purely on the political slant. And what ultimately I think the hearing is going to come down to is, can Twitter point to empirical data that rebuts the fact that somehow, because its owners and its employees may lean left, they're not making content judgment calls that favor those who may lean left? I think that that's the overall gist of it.
So left-leaners might say that Twitter does the same to them. What are the questions that you want to ask? Let's start with Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey.
I would point to, number one, what your algorithm makeup. What feeds into that algorithm? I understand some of that is proprietary, but can you demonstrate, can you sort of open your algorithm up to us so that we're able to see that there's not content bias there? I might add, they may have the right constitutionally to content bias if they want to. So if they do demonstrate there is some content bias there, I'm not sure they've even run afoul of the law, but I do think they'd lose subscriptions or folks using the platform. And then I think the other thing that is less about whether there's a philosophical bias there as something even more fundamental, and that is, does your algorithm, in essence, reward extremist rhetoric, be it on the left or on the right? We are at a moment in time where the very fabric of our political culture continues to deteriorate. Some of that, I think, is attributable to what gets said on social media and the way people use that platform. And I might also say that why can someone sign on to Twitter and not even provide who their identity is? This use of bots, I think, allows people much more of a license to say things that they wouldn't say if it were directly attributable to them as an individual. I think that leads to much more harsh discourse. And from a best practices perspective, might it be a better experience for the consumer, for the company, and for our political culture to make some policy changes? This would be in the recommendation realm, not in the legislative prescription realm, to make it a better platform for our country, for users, and for the company.
And what about Facebook COO Sheryl Sandberg specifically, given that you've already heard from Mark Zuckerberg whether his responses were satisfactory or unsatisfactory, and also the evidence that there are foreign actors attempting to meddle in our elections again, and that Russia's meddling in the 2016 election could have swung the election in favor of President Trump?
Well, we'll never really fully know. I mean, look, so much noise and chatter and, frankly, inaccurate information gets pushed out by both sides as an election nears. It's really hard to say whether or not the Russia interference contributed to people changing their votes, or would have voted but didn't vote, or did vote but otherwise wouldn't have voted. I think on Facebook, some of the questions are the same as with Twitter. I don't know that we're going to get too much into Russian interference because we did last time. I think with Facebook, there's a couple lines of questioning. One, the European Union just introduced the GDPR, which is a data privacy law that's very far-reaching. I think as policymakers, we'd like to understand how that's impacted the company, whether it may actually be a barrier for smaller companies into the social media marketplace. So we'll want to know their experience in that realm. And then I think another area, again consistent with Twitter, is it the kind of platform that rewards more extremist rhetoric? Then finally, is Facebook a publisher? I mean, there are some constitutional and statutory obligations that come about if you are a publisher related to First Amendment protection. protections. And Facebook regularly uploads a lot of information that really they're the original source and content originator of that information, which prescribes to them much more in the way of legal responsibilities than if folks are just using their platform uploading content that isn't originated by Facebook.
Now, in an exclusive interview with Bloomberg, the president said, in terms of antitrust issues around these big tech companies, he said, "I won't comment on the breaking up of whether it's that or Amazon or Facebook. As you know, many people think it is a very antitrust situation, the three of them, and this includes Google, but I won't comment on that." Do you think that Google, Facebook, Amazon are an antitrust issue?
In short, I think that there are antitrust implications to those companies as they evolve and, frankly, enter into different industries. And that's not a personal jab at any one of those companies. But if you look at the Federal Trade Commission, who would have jurisdiction over those questions, clearly tech companies have grown so large, so quick, and now are in the retail business. They're in the movie-making business. They're trying to get into all kinds of different industries because they have the data. And data in and of itself is a commodity, and with that data, you can do a lot of other business ventures with it. I think Amazon buying Whole Foods is a very good example. So I'm not here saying that any one of those companies has violated antitrust law, but I am saying that the rapid growth and expansion of those companies does give rise to antitrust considerations, and I think we're probably entering a new era of antitrust jurisprudence. We're probably living through it right now, where we are going to need more guidance and enforcement from the FTC moving forward.
How disappointed are you that Google is not showing up next week and sending its CEO? And do you think that will come back to hurt them?
Well, Google does have, I think, some answers that we need to hear from in terms of its advertising model. Yes, I'm disappointed. I think any time that you're called before Congress to answer questions, you should come. There are legitimate public policy considerations that I feel that we are entitled to answers on. Remember, the hearing is rooted more than anything else in consumer protection and creating consumer awareness around these platforms, and in the case of Google, in terms of its advertising models. So yes, I'm disappointed. I think that there'll be other opportunities for them to appear. I hope that they do. When you don't appear, my sense is you don't want to answer legitimate questions surrounding public policy. And when they were asked, they were provided information as to why we would like them to appear.
Now, you are retiring. Are you happy with the job that President Trump is doing? And would you like to see a Republican run against him in 2020?
Well, I think some of the policies that the president has pushed forward are directly attributable to the economic growth that we are enjoying right now, the tax cuts, some of the regulatory reform measures we've taken. We made some Dodd-Frank reform measures. At the same point in time, my feeling is that the president picks fights that are unnecessary, and that it diminishes his ability to be persuasive and to grow larger coalitions for the next tranche of legislative reforms that we would like to see happen. So I will withhold judgment on 2020. But I think that he would be enjoying more support from the body politic if he would stop picking fights, stop going after Mueller, stop entering into the primary battles, and instead just focus on what the job is. I think there are a lot of folks that gave him a chance that didn't support him, and some who maybe reluctantly supported him but didn't want to support Secretary Clinton. And a lot of those folks, I think, have a tinge of disappointment because the president, rather than being a uniter, oftentimes finds ways to be a divider.